Breakfast should have been ordinary coffee, steaming, sunlight slipping through the blinds, the quiet shuffle of a newspaper. But that morning, my father leaned back in his chair, smiled in a way that froze my blood, and said, "I have a surprise for you." He slid an envelope across the table like it was a gift. My hands trembled as I opened it, only to find pages of debt contracts, balances stacked into a staggering number, 900, 0. "It must be paid by Monday," he said, his voice flat, almost casual, as if he were asking me to pass the butter. When I whispered, "No," his smile vanished, the coffee cup in his hand tilted. Scalding liquid splashed across my skin, burning hot, just as his roar filled the kitchen. "Get out!" An hour later, the police arrived. But I already knew this wasn't the end. It was only the beginning of a war I never wanted to fight. I sat there, my pulse thundering in my ears, the taste of burnt coffee still bitter on my lips. The envelope lay between us like a live grenade, its contents spilling across the table: contracts, loan agreements, numbers stacked so high they blurred together. $900,000. Almost $1 million. My father leaned back in his chair, arms crossed, his expression cold. "Pick them up," he said. "Look carefully. Every signature, every detail. You'll see it's all in order." I gathered the papers with trembling hands, scanning line after line. Credit card statements, loan agreements, a mortgage I'd never seen before. Each page bore a signature that looked exactly like mine. The same loops, the same hurried strokes. My stomach twisted. "This isn't possible," I whispered. "I never signed these." He smirked, sipping what remained of his coffee. "Memory isn't what it used to be, Sarah. Stress makes people forget. You probably signed them and shoved them in a drawer, but they're real, and they're yours." I slammed the papers down, my hands shaking with anger. "Stop it. Don't twist this on me. I know what I've signed in my life, and it's not this. 900,000? I don't even make that in 10 years. His voice hardened. "Family debts belong to family. You live here. You've always depended on me. Now it's your turn to carry the weight." "Carry the weight?" I repeated, my throat tight. "I've been carrying your weight for years, running errands, covering bills you forgot, defending you when people whispered about your gambling. And this is how you thank me?" For a moment, his eyes flickered anger, shame, or maybe just calculation. Then he leaned forward, elbows on the table, his voice low and sharp. "I don't care what you believe. What matters is the debt. If it isn't paid by Monday, the collectors come. They'll take everything: the house, your car, your job security. You'll lose it all with me." His words sank into me like ice water. He wasn't asking. He was threatening. "You can't drag me down with you," I said, my voice breaking. "Oh, but I can." He shoved the envelope closer, the edge catching against my wrist. "You think you're better than me? You think you can just walk away while I drown? No. You'll sink with me, unless you do what's right." "Right?" My laugh was bitter. "Since when is fraud right? Since when is destroying your own daughter's life justified?" His hand shot out, slamming the table so hard the dishes rattled. "Enough," he barked. "Either you find the money, or you'll wish you had. Do you understand me?" I stared at him, my heart hammering, realizing with a sickening clarity that the man across from me wasn't my father anymore. He was a stranger wearing his face, willing to sacrifice me to save himself, and this was only the beginning. I tried to steady my breathing, but the kitchen felt smaller by the second, the walls pressing in. My father's glare followed me like a shadow. "I'm not paying a dime," I said, my voice firm even though my hands still shook. "This isn't mine, and I won't be manipulated into believing it, Island." His laugh was sharp, hollow. "Manipulated? You've always been ungrateful. I gave you everything, and now, when it's my turn to need help, you spit in my face? Help?" I snapped. "You're trying to pin your mistakes on me. That's not help, that's betrayal." His eyes narrowed. "Careful, Sarah. You're not as innocent as you think. Who else had access to my files? Who else knew the answers to my security questions? Who else could have signed those papers?" My chest tightened. "You're accusing me? Who else?" he pressed, slamming a finger onto the papers. "Those signatures. They're forged!" I shouted. Anyone can copy handwriting. He leaned forward, his breath reeking of coffee and cigarettes. Forged 37 times? On loans, casinos, credit applications? You expect anyone to believe that? I stumbled back from the table, clutching my arm where the burn still throbbed. His eyes gleamed, and I realized he was enjoying this, pushing me into a corner, watching me squirm. You've been careless, he said coldly. Living here, relying on me. Maybe you thought you could hide things. Maybe you racked up these debts, and now you're scared to admit it. My blood boiled. I've never gambled in my life. I don't owe a single dollar. This is your doing. Prove it, he sneered. Go ahead. March into court, tell them Daddy forged your name. They'll laugh you out of the room. Those papers say otherwise. And when the collectors come, they won't care who signed. They'll care whose name is written in ink. His words cut deeper than the burn on my chest. For years, he'd lectured me about loyalty, about how family was supposed to stand together. Now he twisted those same lessons into weapons. I whispered, almost to myself, family doesn't destroy each other. He heard me anyway. His jaw tightened, and his tone dropped to a dangerous growl. Family survives together. If you refuse to pay, you're turning your back on me. And if you do that, Sarah, you'll regret it. The silence that followed was worse than his shouting. I could hear the clock ticking on the wall, every second hammering home the truth. He had already chosen his path, and he expected me to follow or be crushed beneath him. And for the first time, a chilling thought crept into my mind. Maybe he was willing to do worse than throw coffee. Maybe I was no longer safe in my own home. The envelope still lay on the table, like a weapon between us. My father's eyes never left me, cold and unwavering. I wanted to look away, to pretend this wasn't happening, but the burn on my chest kept screaming the truth. There was no pretending anymore. I said no, I repeated, my voice steadier than I felt. I won't pay a debt that isn't mine. His jaw clenched. He picked up his coffee cup again, swirling the dark liquid like he was thinking it over. For a second, I thought maybe he'd back down, but then he stood up, looming over me. You think you can walk away from this? From me? His tone was sharp, laced with fury. You're my daughter. You'll do what I tell you. I pushed back my chair. I'm your daughter, not your pawn. Stop pretending this is about family. This is about your greed, your addictions, your lies. Something snapped in his face, his nostrils flared, his hands trembled, and then it happened. In one violent motion, he hurled the coffee straight at me. The scalding liquid splashed across my neck and chest, seeping through the thin fabric of my blouse. The pain was instant, like fire licking across my skin, sharp and unrelenting. I screamed, stumbling backward, clawing at my shirt as the hot liquid clung to me. Jesus, Dad! I gasped, tears springing to my eyes. What the hell is wrong with you? He didn't flinch. His expression was twisted, not with guilt but with grim satisfaction. Maybe now you'll understand how serious I am, he snarled. I pressed the edge of a napkin against my chest, but it was useless. The burns were already forming, angry red patches rising on my skin. My breath came in ragged gasps, my body trembling between pain and rage. You just assaulted me, I spat, my voice hoarse. Your own daughter. Do you even hear yourself? He slammed his fist onto the table, rattling the dishes. Don't you dare lecture me. You think you're so righteous, so pure. But when Monday comes and they take this house, you'll wish you'd listened. I backed toward the doorway, every instinct screaming to run. If you think hurting me will make me pay, you're insane. His lips curled into a cruel smile. Insane? No, Sarah. I'm desperate. And desperate men do desperate things. The words chilled me more than the burns seared me. I realized then that he wasn't bluffing, wasn't just trying to scare me. He was willing to destroy me physically, financially, emotionally, if it meant saving himself. For a heartbeat, the kitchen fell silent, except for the ticking clock and the sound of my own ragged breathing. His eyes bored into me, daring me to defy him again. I won't do it, I whispered, voice trembling but firm. I'd rather lose everything than sell my soul to cover your sins. His face darkened, veins bulging at his temple. He grabbed the empty cup and hurled it against the wall. It shattered, ceramic shards raining across the linoleum. "Then get out!" he roared, pointing toward the door. "Get out of my house and don't come back!" The words cut deeper than the burns. I had nowhere else to go, no plan, no protection. But standing there, trembling and blistered, I knew one thing. If I stayed, he'd break me. If I left, maybe, just maybe, I'd have a chance to fight back. So I turned and walked away, his curses echoing behind me, each one a nail sealing the coffin of whatever relationship we once had. And for the first time in my life, I realized my father wasn't my protector anymore. He was my enemy. The door slammed behind me with a violence that echoed through my bones. I stumbled down the porch steps, clutching my chest where the burns still pulsed with every heartbeat. The October air was sharp, biting into my raw skin, but it was nothing compared to the fire my father had left on me. For a moment, I just stood in the yard, trembling, staring at the house I'd once called safe. The curtains in the kitchen shifted. He was still inside, pacing like a caged animal, muttering to himself. I couldn't go back. Not now. Maybe not ever. My legs moved before my mind did, carrying me across the lawn toward the weathered fence that divided our property from Robert's. He'd been my neighbor for years, a retired history teacher with a kind smile and a habit of humming when he gardened. We'd shared polite conversations, the kind you forget as soon as they're over. I never imagined I'd be running to his door like a refugee. I knocked hard, my hand shaking so badly it rattled the glass pane. The door opened, and Robert's face appeared, framed by the warm light of his kitchen. His expression shifted instantly when he saw me. My disheveled hair, the scorch marks on my blouse, the panic in my eyes. "Sarah?" His voice was full of concern. "What happened to you?" My throat closed, the words stuck like stones. Finally, I managed. "I need help." He stepped aside without hesitation. "Come in. Sit down." The warmth of his house enveloped me, a stark contrast to the icy emptiness I'd just left. He guided me to the table, fetched a towel, and handed me a glass of water. My hands shook so badly I nearly spilled it. "Who did this?" he asked quietly, his eyes fixed on the red blotches peeking above my collar. I looked down, unable to meet his gaze. "My father." The words came out flat, unreal. He threw coffee at me, and he says I owe him almost $1 million. Robert's brows knitted together in disbelief. "That's insane. You know that, right?" Tears welled in my eyes, blurring his face. "I don't know what's real anymore. He had papers, signatures, everything looked like mine. He says if I don't pay by Monday, we'll lose everything." Robert's voice hardened, the teacher's authority creeping in. "Sarah, listen to me. That's fraud. That's abuse. You can't go back there." I buried my face in my hands, sobs tearing through me. "But he's my dad. How do I call the police on my own father?" Robert's hand rested gently on my shoulder. "Because right now, Sarah, he isn't acting like a father. He's acting like a criminal. And if you don't protect yourself, no one else will." Robert's words echoed in my mind. He's acting like a criminal, but the voice inside me pushed back. He's still your father. The two truths clashed, pulling me apart. I pressed the towel against my burns, staring at the steam curling from Robert's mug of tea. The smell reminded me of home, of safety. But my own kitchen no longer held those things. It hadn't, I realized, for a very long time. The memories came in waves. The first loan. 4 years ago, he'd called me into his study. The air was thick with cigar smoke, papers scattered across the desk. "Just sign here," he'd said, sliding a document toward me. "It's a small loan, nothing serious, just helping me bridge a gap until payday." I was 27, still naive enough to believe him. He'd smiled, told me it was routine, that families did this for each other. I signed. That loan ballooned into months of late fees I never saw coming. The guilt. Then came the guilt trips. "You're all I have, Sarah. Since your mother passed, it's just been you and me." He'd sit at the table, head in his hands, his voice breaking. "If you don't help me, I don't know how I'll survive." I'd cave every time. I thought I was protecting him, holding him together, but in reality, he was pulling me deeper into his debts. The isolation. Gradually, he made sure it was just us. He discouraged me from seeing friends, Made excuses when family wanted to visit. They don't understand us, he'd say. They'll just judge. I started to believe him. Slowly, my world shrank until all I saw was him, his problems, his needs. The red flags. The gambling was the worst kept secret. He'd vanish for nights, coming home smelling of whiskey and desperation. I'd find casino chips in his pockets, credit card statements tucked under newspapers. When I asked, he'd snap, "Don't pry, I'm handling it." But he wasn't. He never was. The betrayal of trust. Last year, I discovered he'd taken money directly from my savings account. I confronted him, shaking with rage. "You stole from me," I shouted. He didn't even deny it. "Borrowed," he corrected. "Don't be dramatic. You're young, you'll make it back." The betrayal cut deep, but when he collapsed into a coughing fit, clutching his chest, I dropped the fight and fetched his medicine. He always knew exactly how to play me. Back to the present. Now, sitting in Robert's kitchen, those memories lined up like dominoes, each one showing how long I'd been complicit in my own destruction. Robert poured more tea, his eyes scanning me carefully. "He's been doing this for years, hasn't he?" I nodded, my throat tight. Yes. I kept telling myself it was temporary, that he'd change, that if I just helped enough, he'd stop. Robert leaned forward. But he didn't stop. And he won't. People like that don't change unless someone forces them to. I closed my eyes, the truth pressing down like a weight. My father hadn't become dangerous overnight. He had been leading me to this moment for years, piece by piece, debt by debt, lie by lie. And I finally saw it for what it was. Not love, not loyalty, but a trap. Robert's voice cut through my spiraling thoughts. "Sarah, this ends tonight. You can't let him keep doing this to you." Before I could argue, he picked up his phone and dialed 911. His words were steady, professional domestic assault, hot coffee burns, fraudulent documents, threats. Hearing it spoken aloud made it feel more real than the pain blistering across my chest. 15 minutes later, flashing red and blue lights spilled across Robert's driveway. 2 officers stepped out, a woman with streaks of gray in her dark hair, badge glinting under the porch light, and a younger man who carried himself with sharp, alert movements. "Sarah?" the woman asked, her voice calm but firm. "I'm Officer Martinez. This is Officer Chen. We understand you were assaulted?" I nodded, pulling at my collar to reveal the angry red blotches across my chest and neck. Martinez's eyes hardened. Chen raised his camera and snapped photos. "Can you tell us what happened?" Martinez asked, notebook ready. My voice shook, but I forced the words out. "My father. He threw scalding coffee at me. Then he told me I owed him $900,000 in debts I never signed for. When I refused to pay, he threatened me." Robert backed me up, his voice unwavering as he described how I'd shown up at his door moments after. Martinez glanced toward my house. "Is he still inside?" "Yes," I whispered. The single word tasted like ash. Chen's hand hovered near his radio. "We'll need to separate the parties, secure the scene. Ma'am, would you come with us?" I followed them across the yard, every step heavier than the last. My home loomed ahead, the windows glowing like the eyes of a predator. Officer Chen knocked sharply. "Police, open up." A pause, then the door creaked open. My father stood there, feigning confusion, his face twisting into an almost comical mask of innocence. "What's this about?" he asked smoothly. "Is there a problem?" Martinez's tone was clipped. "Sir, we've received a report of domestic assault and fraudulent documents. We need to ask you some questions." He scoffed, stepping back. "Assault? Fraud? My daughter's hysterical. She's always been dramatic." My fists clenched. "Tell them about the envelope, Dad. Show them the papers you shoved in my face." For a flicker of a second, his mask slipped, then he smirked. "What envelope?" But the officers were already inside, scanning the kitchen. On the table, the mess of documents still lay scattered, the coffee stains dark against the linoleum, evidence he hadn't had time to hide. Chen picked up a stack, flipping through the pages. "These are all in her name. Signed dozens of times." My father's voice grew louder, sharper. "Exactly. They're hers. She's lying to cover her gambling." "Gambling?" I shouted. "I've never gambled in my life." The officers exchanged a look, the kind that said they'd seen this play out before. Martinez's voice was steady as stone. "Sir, we'll need you to step outside while we process the scene." My father's glare cut into me as Chen guided him toward the door. "You'll regret this, Sarah," he hissed. "Blood is thicker than water, but you've just poisoned your own family." I trembled, but for the first time that night, I didn't feel powerless. The truth was finally out in the open, and this time, I had witnesses. The courthouse smelled faintly of polished wood and old paper, a place where lives could be rebuilt or destroyed with a single verdict. I sat at the plaintiff's table, palms damp, knees bouncing under the desk. Across the aisle, my father lounged with a false calm, his suit wrinkled, his eyes darting like a man pretending control he didn't have. The judge, a stern woman named Patricia Collins, struck her gavel. "We are here today to hear the matter of alleged fraud, domestic assault, and identity theft. Mr. John Miller, you stand accused. Miss Sarah Miller, you are the complainant. Let us proceed." My lawyer, Miss Grant, rose first. Her voice was clear, confident. "Your Honor, the evidence is undeniable. Over 37 forged documents bearing my client's signature, totaling $900,000 in fraudulent debt. We will also present photographic evidence of physical assault inflicted by the defendant upon his own daughter." She handed over exhibits, copies of the debt papers, high-resolution photos of my burns, even the police report Martinez had written that night. Judge Collins glanced at them, her brow furrowing. "Thank you, Counselor. Mr. Miller, how do you respond?" My father stood, his posture deceptively steady. "Your Honor, these accusations are outrageous. My daughter has always been reckless with money. She signed those papers herself, then tried to pin the blame on me. As for the so-called assault, she spilled the coffee on herself in a tantrum. I would never harm my child." My fists clenched under the table. Lies rolled off his tongue as easily as breathing. Miss Grant's tone sharpened. "If that is so, then why do multiple handwriting experts confirm the signatures are forged?" Father's jaw twitched. "Experts can be bought. And why," she pressed, "was the envelope containing these documents found on your kitchen table not hers? Why did you demand payment by Monday?" His voice rose, cracking. "Because she owes me loyalty. After everything I've sacrificed, she dares stand here and destroy me." The judge banged her gavel. "Control yourself, Mr. Miller." I felt the weight of every eye in the courtroom pressing on me. My turn had come. Miss Grant nodded gently, and I stood. My knees wobbled, but my voice, though shaking, was mine. "Your Honor, I have never borrowed this money. I've never gambled, never signed a loan worth even a fraction of this amount. My father has been manipulating me for years. He used guilt, threats, and isolation to control me. But this," I held up the forged papers, my hands trembling, "this is the final betrayal." I turned to face him directly. "You threw scalding coffee at me when I said no. You tried to ruin me, to trap me. You stopped being my father the moment you decided I was disposable." His face twisted, rage breaking through his facade. "How dare you?" he shouted. "After everything I've done for you, you stand there and humiliate me in public? You're nothing without me." Gasps rippled through the courtroom. Judge Collins's gavel struck again. "Order!" Miss Grant calmly slid another piece of evidence forward, a series of screenshots, gambling records tied to accounts opened under my father's name but funded with my information. "These, Your Honor, show where the debts originated: illegal betting, casino markers. Not my client, her father." My father lunged forward, his voice cracking with fury. "She's lying. She's framing me because she wants the house. She wants everything I built." I rose again, heart pounding. "You didn't build anything. You stole, you lied, and you used me as your safety net. But I'm done paying for your sins." The courtroom buzzed, whispers rising like a tide. Judge Collins raised her hand, silencing the room. Her voice was cold, decisive. "Enough. The evidence speaks for itself. The forged signatures, the testimony, the photographs, the financial records all point to deliberate fraud and assault. Mr. Miller, your behavior today only reinforces these findings." My father's shoulders sagged, his mask finally cracking. For the first time, I saw fear in his eyes. The judge continued, her tone final. This court finds probable cause to charge John Miller with fraud, identity theft, and domestic battery. Bail is denied. You will be remanded into custody until trial. The gavel fell with a sharp crack. Officers moved quickly, stepping to his side. He tried one last desperate plea, twisting toward me as they cuffed his wrists. Sarah, you can't do this. I'm your father. Blood is blood. Tears stung my eyes, but I held my ground. Blood doesn't excuse betrayal. They let him out, his shouts echoing down the hall until the doors shut behind him. I sank back into my chair, my body trembling, my breath ragged. Miss Grant squeezed my shoulder. You did it. You stood up. But victory felt heavy, not sweet. I had faced my father and survived, but at the cost of burning every bridge that tied me to him. Still, as the courtroom emptied, a strange clarity settled in me. For the first time in years, I was no longer his prisoner. I was free. The courthouse steps felt endless as I walked out into the cold afternoon air. Reporters hovered near the entrance, microphones poised, their voices sharp with questions. How does it feel to testify against your own father? Do you think he'll plead guilty? I kept my head down, pushing past them. This wasn't their story. It was mine. Robert was waiting by his car. His steady presence was the anchor I needed. When I reached him, he simply asked, Are you all right? I let out a laugh that was half sob. I don't know. But I'm free. For the first time, I'm free. Over the next weeks, the aftermath unfolded like the slow settling of dust after a storm. My father's accounts were frozen, his gambling debts documented and linked to his name, not mine. The house, once under threat, was secured in court as my property. For the first time in years, I could breathe without fear of collectors pounding on the door. But freedom had its own kind of weight. Nights were the hardest. I'd lie awake in the quiet, replaying his voice in my head. Blood is blood. Guilt crept in like smoke through a crack, whispering that I had betrayed him. Then I'd press my hand to the fading burn scars on my chest and remember, he betrayed me first. Robert visited often, bringing groceries, conversation, and a calm reminder that healing wasn't weakness. You're not broken, he told me once. You've been tested, and you survived. That makes you stronger. I began to reclaim the house. I scrubbed the kitchen floor where coffee had once scalded me. I threw away the shattered cup, repainted the walls, and opened the curtains wide. Sunlight spilled across the table again, and for the first time, it didn't feel like a battlefield. It felt like home. One morning, as I sipped fresh coffee from a new mug, my phone buzzed. It was Miss Grant. The restitution order came through, she said. He's required to pay you back $15,000 for damages and medical costs once he serves his sentence. The irony made me smile. The man who tried to bury me under $900,000 of debt would now be forced to send me checks every month, a reminder of his failure and my survival. I set the phone down and looked around my kitchen. The walls were still scarred from years of tension, but the silence was mine. The air was lighter. The house was mine. My life was mine. For so long, I had been trapped in his shadow, suffocating under debts that weren't mine and guilt I didn't deserve. Now, with him behind bars and the truth finally exposed, I felt something I hadn't in years: peace. And though part of me would always ache for the father I once believed in, I knew this truth with unshakable certainty: blood may be thicker than water, but love, respect, and freedom are stronger than both.